This might be the most honest Romania video you'll see this year. No myths, no exaggeration, just real facts that still shape everyday life. If you enjoy discovering countries beyond the surface, you're in the right place. Let's begin. 1. One of Europe's last true old-growth forests. Romania is home to some of the largest remaining old-growth forests in Europe outside Scandinavia, mainly located in the Carpathian Mountains. These forests are considered virgin or quasi-virgin, meaning they have developed naturally for centuries with minimal human intervention. Many of the trees are several hundred years old, creating complex ecosystems that are now extremely rare on the continent. Large predators such as brown bears, wolves, and lynx depend on these forests for survival, making Romania a biodiversity stronghold. Scientists study these areas to understand how European forests functioned before industrial logging. Unlike managed forests, fallen trees are left to decay naturally, enriching the soil and supporting countless species. In Western Europe, similar forests disappeared generations ago due to agriculture and urban expansion. Romania's forests therefore act as a living ecological archive, showing what Europe once looked like before large-scale deforestation became the norm. 2. The Danube Delta's triple protected status. The Danube Delta in Romania is one of the most biologically rich wetlands on Earth and holds a rare triple protected status. It is simultaneously designated as a biosphere reserve, a national park, and a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a combination achieved by very few places worldwide. The delta forms where the Danube River meets the Black Sea, creating a vast maze of channels, lakes, reed beds, and floating islands. It hosts over 300 species of birds and more than 40 species of freshwater fish, many of them rare or endangered. Pelicans, cormorants, and herons thrive here in enormous colonies. Human settlement exists, but traditional fishing villages still rely on wooden boats and seasonal rhythms rather than modern infrastructure. Unlike heavily engineered deltas elsewhere in Europe, this one continues to reshape itself naturally through sediment flow. The Danube Delta functions as a massive natural filter, improving water quality before it reaches the sea and preserving an ecosystem that has almost vanished elsewhere. 3. Europe's largest brown bear population. Romania hosts the largest population of wild brown bears in Europe, with estimates placing the number at several thousand individuals living mainly in the Carpathian Mountains. This means Romania alone has more brown bears than all other European Union member states combined. The reason is simple and old-fashioned: vast forests, low human density in mountain regions, and long-standing wildlife protection traditions. Bears here roam across large territories that include forests, alpine meadows, and remote valleys. Unlike in Western Europe, where bears were hunted to extinction centuries ago, Romania never fully eradicated its large predators. This has created a rare situation where humans and bears have coexisted for generations, sometimes peacefully and sometimes not. Modern challenges include habitat fragmentation and occasional encounters near villages. Still, Romania remains one of the last places in Europe where brown bears live as a functioning part of a natural ecosystem rather than as a carefully managed symbol. 4. Romania's active mud volcanoes. Romania is home to active mud volcanoes, a rare geological phenomenon usually associated with tectonically unstable regions. Even though The country itself is not located on a major plate boundary. These formations are found mainly in the Buzău region, where underground gases push water, clay, and minerals up to the surface. Instead of lava, thick mud slowly bubbles and flows, creating landscapes that resemble the surface of another planet. Some cones reach several yards in height and can remain active for decades. The activity is driven by natural gas pressure deep underground, not volcanic heat. During dry periods, the mud hardens and cracks, forming dramatic geometric patterns. These mud volcanoes constantly reshape themselves, expanding, collapsing, and reforming after heavy rain. They are considered scientifically valuable because they reveal subsurface geological processes without the danger associated with traditional volcanoes. Romania's mud volcanoes are among the most accessible and visually striking in Europe. 5. The world's first industrial oil refinery. Romania played a pioneering role in the global oil industry by hosting what is widely recognized as the world's first industrial-scale oil refinery. This refinery was built in the city of Ploiești in the mid-19th century, at a time when most of the world still relied on coal, wood, or whale oil for energy. Romania was among the first countries to systematically extract, refine, and export petroleum products. Official records from that period show that Romania was already producing and refining oil on a commercial scale, while many future oil giants had not yet begun. Bucharest even became one of the first cities in the world to use refined oil for public street lighting. This early start turned Romania into a strategic energy hub long before the Middle East oil boom. The legacy of this innovation shaped the country's industrial development and later made its oil fields a major strategic target during global conflicts. 6. Wooden churches built without nails. Romania is famous for its wooden churches, many of which were built entirely without using metal nails. These structures, especially common in regions like Maramureș, rely on complex wooden joints, pegs, and interlocking beams developed through generations of craftsmanship. Some of these churches date back several centuries and have survived wars, harsh winters, and earthquakes. The builders used local oak and other hardwoods, carefully seasoned to resist rot and insects. Their tall, narrow spires were designed not only for religious symbolism, but also to withstand strong mountain winds. Interior walls are often decorated with hand-painted biblical scenes created by local artisans rather than trained clergy. Several of these churches are now protected as UNESCO World Heritage Sites due to their architectural and cultural value. They represent a rare survival of medieval construction knowledge that disappeared elsewhere in Europe. These churches prove that advanced engineering once existed without modern tools or industrial materials. 7. Salt mines used for medical therapy. Romania has vast underground salt mines that are not only industrial or tourist sites, but also used for medical therapy, a practice known as speleotherapy. These mines maintain a constant temperature, stable humidity, and air rich in salt aerosols, which is believed to help people with respiratory conditions. For decades, locals have spent hours underground to ease asthma, bronchitis, and chronic allergies. Some salt mines include playgrounds, walking paths, and even sports courts, allowing patients to remain active during treatment. Unlike modern clinics, these environments are completely natural and require no artificial climate control. The practice developed organically when miners noticed improved lung health compared to surface workers. Today, doctors in Romania still recommend salt mine therapy as a complementary treatment. This approach blends traditional observation with modern medicine. Romania remains one of the few countries where underground medical therapy is part of everyday healthcare culture. 8. Some of Europe's highest paved mountain roads. Romania is home to some of the highest fully paved mountain roads in Europe, cutting directly through the Carpathian Mountains. These roads were not built for tourism originally, but for strategic and military reasons during the communist era. They climbed to extreme elevations, passing above the tree line and exposing drivers to dramatic alpine landscapes. Sharp hairpin turns, long tunnels, and steep gradients make these routes both scenic and demanding. Weather conditions can change rapidly, with fog, strong winds, and sudden temperature drops even in summer. For months each year, snow and ice make them inaccessible, reinforcing their reputation as seasonal roads. Today, they are considered engineering achievements rather than simple transport routes. Aerial footage clearly shows how these roads carve through mountains that were once nearly impassable. They symbolize a period when large-scale infrastructure was built to demonstrate technical power rather than economic efficiency. Natural asphalt lakes, rising from the ground. Romania has rare natural asphalt lakes where bitumen seeps to the surface without drilling or industrial activity. These lakes are formed when underground petroleum deposits slowly rise through cracks in the Earth's crust and solidify upon contact with air. The result is a thick, black surface that appears solid but can slowly shift and bubble over time. Historically, locals used this natural asphalt for waterproofing boats, sealing roofs, and reinforcing roads long before modern materials existed. Unlike industrial asphalt production, these lakes require no refinement or processing. Their appearance changes with temperature, becoming softer in summer and harder in winter. Few European countries have visible petroleum deposits at the surface like this. Scientists study these sites to better understand oil migration underground. Romania's asphalt lakes are a reminder that the country's energy resources were visible long before modern drilling technology existed. 10. Medieval land use patterns still visible today. In many parts of Romania, medieval land use patterns are still clearly visible in the modern landscape. Villages, fields, and pastures often follow boundaries established hundreds of years ago, long before modern surveying or mechanized agriculture. Narrow strip fields, shared grazing lands, and forest edges were organized according to communal rules rather than individual ownership. What makes this remarkable is that these patterns can still be seen in satellite imagery, almost unchanged. In Western Europe, similar systems disappeared due to land consolidation and industrial farming. In Romania, historical isolation and slower modernization allowed these layouts to survive. Farmers often still work the same plots their ancestors did, using inherited knowledge rather than rewritten land plans. This continuity offers historians and geographers a rare window into how medieval European rural life functioned. Romania is effectively an open-air archive of Europe's agricultural past. 11. Hand-built haystacks still used today. In many Romanian villages, hay is still dried and stored in hand-built haystacks, a farming method that has largely vanished elsewhere in Europe. These haystacks are not decorative or nostalgic, but carefully engineered structures designed to protect grass from rain, wind, and rot. Farmers stack the hay around a central wooden pole, shaping it to shed water naturally. This method allows hay to be stored outdoors for months without modern machinery or plastic wrapping. The technique requires skill and experience, as poor construction can ruin an entire season's feed. In Western Europe, mechanized baling replaced this practice decades ago. In Romania, it survives because small-scale farming remains economically viable. Entire landscapes dotted with haystacks appear during late summer, creating scenes that look centuries old. These hayfields demonstrate how traditional knowledge can still outperform industrial solutions in certain environments. 12. Thermal lakes that never freeze. Romania has several natural thermal lakes that never freeze, even during the coldest winters. These lakes are heated from below by geothermal activity, keeping water temperatures stable throughout the year. Steam often rises from the surface in winter, creating an almost surreal landscape surrounded by snow. The warm, mineral-rich water supports unique microorganisms and plant life that cannot survive in ordinary lakes. For centuries, locals have used these lakes for bathing, believing in their healing properties for joints, skin, and circulation. Unlike modern spas, these lakes exist entirely in natural settings with no artificial heating systems. Their constant temperature also attracts wildlife during winter, when surrounding water sources freeze. In many parts of Europe, similar geothermal lakes were heavily commercialized or altered. Romania's thermal lakes remain largely natural, offering a rare example of untouched geothermal water ecosystems in a temperate climate. 13. Churches painted on the outside, not just the inside. Romania is famous for a unique group of Orthodox churches whose exterior walls are completely covered with religious paintings. Unlike most churches in Europe, where decoration is limited to the interior, these buildings display detailed biblical scenes on their outer walls. The paintings were created several centuries ago using mineral-based pigments designed to survive rain, snow, and strong sunlight. Many of the scenes were intended to educate rural communities who could not read, effectively turning the church walls into visual storybooks. Despite harsh weather, a surprising amount of color and detail has survived to the present day. The churches are typically located in rural areas, surrounded by fields and forests, rather than cities. This makes them visually striking and easy to recognize even from a distance. The tradition is unique to this region and has no real equivalent elsewhere in Europe. These churches show how art, religion, and education once merged directly into everyday village life. 14. The prehistoric Cucuteni culture, older than the pyramids. Romania was once home to the Cucuteni culture, one of the most advanced prehistoric civilizations in Europe, dating back several thousand years before the Egyptian pyramids were built. This culture is known for its highly sophisticated pottery, featuring intricate spiral and geometric designs that still puzzle archaeologists today. Cucuteni settlements were unusually large for their time, with some housing thousands of inhabitants in well-organized layouts. The people practiced advanced agriculture, animal husbandry, and long-distance trade. One of the most mysterious aspects is that many of their settlements were deliberately burned and rebuilt, possibly as part of ritual cycles. Their ceramics show artistic complexity unmatched in Europe during that period. Despite their achievements, the Cucuteni people left no written records, making their disappearance one of archaeology's great unanswered questions. Artifacts from this culture are considered among the finest prehistoric objects ever found in Europe. Romania thus preserves evidence of a forgotten civilization that flourished long before classical antiquity. 15. Surprisingly, fast internet in rural Romania. Romania consistently ranks among the countries with the fastest average internet speeds in Europe, and this is not limited to major cities. In many rural areas, fiber optic connections were installed later than in Western Europe, which allowed providers to skip outdated infrastructure entirely. As a result, villages can sometimes enjoy faster and more stable connections than large cities in older economies. Competition between local internet providers kept prices low and encouraged rapid expansion. This created a rare situation where modern digital infrastructure reached remote regions before heavy urban congestion slowed development. Fast internet has enabled remote work, online education, and small digital businesses in places that still look entirely traditional. It also explains why Romania became a regional hub for IT outsourcing and software development. While roads and railways lag behind Western standards, the digital backbone is surprisingly advanced. Romania proves that technological progress does not always follow the same path as physical infrastructure development. 16. Abandoned communist megastructures. Across Romania, massive unfinished or abandoned structures from the communist era still dominate parts of the landscape. These buildings were designed to showcase power, scale, and ideological ambition rather than practicality or cost efficiency. Many were planned as factories, civic centers, or monumental housing projects meant to serve tens of thousands of people. Political change, economic collapse, and shifting priorities caused construction to stop abruptly, leaving concrete giants frozen in time. Some structures are so large they can be clearly identified in satellite imagery. Over the years, nature has begun reclaiming many of them, with vegetation growing through cracked walls and empty halls. Urban explorers and filmmakers are drawn to these sites because they visually capture the collapse of an entire system. Unlike ancient ruins, these megastructures are modern, raw, and unsettling. They stand as physical evidence of how ideology once shaped architecture on an enormous scale. 17. Submerged ancient settlements in the Black Sea. Off Romania's Black Sea coast lie submerged ancient settlements now hidden beneath the waterline. Archaeological research suggests that parts of the Black Sea coastline were once dry land inhabited by early human communities before sea levels rose thousands of years ago. As water slowly flooded these areas, entire settlements were preserved underwater, protected from erosion and human interference. Wooden structures, tools, and settlement layouts remain unusually intact due to low oxygen levels at certain depths. This makes the Black Sea one of the most promising underwater archaeology zones in Europe. Unlike shipwrecks, these sites represent everyday human life rather than isolated events. Discoveries here help scientists understand how early societies adapted to dramatic climate and environmental change. The idea that villages and homes now lie beneath calm coastal waters adds a powerful hidden history dimension to Romania's shoreline. These submerged landscapes challenge the assumption that Europe's ancient past exists only on land. 18. Traditional shepherd migration routes still in use. Romania still preserves traditional seasonal shepherd migration routes that have been followed for centuries. Every year, shepherds move their flocks between lowland pastures and high mountain grazing areas, following paths shaped by geography rather than modern borders. These routes can stretch for dozens or even hundreds of miles and cross forests, valleys, and mountain passes. The migration is timed precisely with seasonal changes, grass growth, and weather patterns. Knowledge of these routes is passed down orally, not through maps or written instructions. Along the way, temporary shelters and grazing rights are respected according to old customs. In much of Europe, similar traditions disappeared with industrial agriculture and land privatization. In Romania, this system survived because large-scale mechanization arrived relatively late. These migrations represent a living link to Europe's pastoral past, still functioning in the modern world. 19. Naturally carbonated mineral springs. Romania has numerous mineral springs where water emerges from the ground already naturally carbonated. Carbon dioxide from underground geological processes dissolves into the water before it reaches the surface, creating natural sparkling mineral water without any industrial intervention. Locals have collected and consumed this water for centuries, often believing in its digestive and therapeutic benefits. Many rural communities still fill bottles directly from public springs. Mineral composition varies from region to region, giving each spring a distinct taste. Long before bottled water became a global industry, Romania was exporting mineral water across Europe. Some of these springs are located in forests or mountain valleys, far from any urban infrastructure. Unlike factory carbonated drinks, the carbonation here is completely natural and continuous. These springs demonstrate how geology directly shaped everyday habits long before modern consumer culture. 20. Extreme microclimates in the Carpathian Mountains. Romania's Carpathian Mountains contain extreme microclimates that allow unusual plant life to survive side by side. In some valleys, cold air becomes trapped, creating conditions similar to northern Europe, while nearby, south-facing slopes experience much warmer temperatures. This means alpine plants, steppe species, and even heat-loving vegetation can exist within a short distance of each other. Certain areas support plant species that are otherwise found hundreds of miles apart on the continent. These microclimates are shaped by altitude, wind patterns, forest density, and sunlight exposure rather than latitude. Farmers historically adapted their crops to these conditions without formal climate science. This diversity also supports a wide range of insects and wildlife in compact areas. Scientists study these zones to understand how ecosystems may adapt to climate change. Romania's mountains function as a natural laboratory where multiple European climates overlap in one region. 21. Rural self-sufficiency still works in modern Romania. Romania is one of the few European countries where rural self-sufficiency remains economically viable rather than symbolic. In many villages, households still produce a large share of their own food, including vegetables, fruit, meat, dairy, and preserved goods. Small plots, orchards, and livestock reduce dependence on cash income, especially among older generations. Home production is often combined with informal local exchange, where goods and services are traded without money changing hands. This system lowers living costs and provides resilience during economic downturns. Unlike in Western Europe, rural land ownership is still widespread rather than concentrated. Energy costs are also reduced through firewood, home-built storage, and seasonal planning. While incomes may appear low on paper, real living standards are often higher than statistics suggest. Romania demonstrates that traditional rural economics can still function alongside modern markets rather than being replaced by them entirely. If you made it this far, you now understand Romania a little better than most people. These are the kinds of details that change how we see countries entirely. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep exploring the world beyond the obvious.